The lights in the Galactic Council chamber dimmed as the final vote was cast. One by one, the representatives of 47 species raised their voting crystals. The blue glow filled the massive dome, reflecting off the polished floors and ancient pillars. Council Speaker Lorne's voice echoed through the hall, calm and final. By unanimous decision, species designation human is hereby declared extinct. Planet Earth is removed from all navigation charts and territorial claims. May their memory serve as a warning to all who would choose war over peace. The chamber fell silent. Some representatives bowed their heads in respect. Others showed no emotion at all. The Vortan delegate, a tall creature with gray-scaled skin and yellow eyes, smiled quietly. For the Vortans, this was a victory. Humanity had been a problem, a species too aggressive, too unpredictable. Now they were gone. But the Vortans were wrong. Far from the Council's gleaming station, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's radiation storms, something waited in the darkness. 3 massive ships hung motionless in space, their hulls black as night, their systems powered down to almost nothing. They had been waiting there for 100 years. Inside the largest ship, Captain Dae-Ho Kim stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He was 45 years old, though he looked older. The weight of command did that to a person. His dark hair was streaked with gray and deep lines marked his face. He stared at the main view screen, watching Jupiter's swirling clouds rotate slowly. "Captain," a voice said softly. Commander Ji-Won Lee stepped up beside him. She was younger, 32, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The council vote is complete. They've officially declared us extinct." Dae-Ho nodded slowly. "Good, that means the plan worked." Ji-Won crossed her arms. 100 years of silence. 100 years of hiding. "I wonder if it was worth it." "We're alive," Dae-Ho said simply. "That makes it worth it." He turned away from the view screen and walked toward the tactical display. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring systems, checking readouts. They were good people, all of them, born and raised in the underground cities of Earth or in the hidden stations scattered throughout the solar system. They had never known the old Earth, the Earth before the war, but they knew the stories. 100 years ago, humanity had been on the edge of extinction. The Vortan Empire and their allies had come without warning, attacking human colonies across a dozen star systems. Earth itself had been invaded, its cities burned, its oceans poisoned. Billions had died in the first month alone, but humanity had fought back. They always did. The survivors had retreated underground into massive bunkers and tunnel networks built during Earth's earlier wars. The orbital defense platforms had been destroyed, but the shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt had survived. And humanity had made a choice: they would disappear. Silent protocol, they called it. Every transmitter was shut down. Every beacon was turned off. Earth stopped broadcasting into space completely. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like humanity had gone extinct, their planet dead and empty. The Vortans had claimed victory and moved on to other conquests. But beneath the surface, humanity had been rebuilding. Generation after generation, they had worked in secret, developing new technologies, new weapons, new ships. They had learned from their defeat. They had become stronger. The door to the bridge slid open and Dr. Hannah Park entered. She was in her late 30s, wearing a white lab coat over her uniform. Her hair was tied back in a practical bun, and she carried a data tablet in her hands. "Captain," she said, slightly out of breath, "we've detected something. A distress signal." Dae-Ho turned to face her. "Origin?" "Human," Hannah said, and the bridge fell silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing and looked up. "It's coming from the outer rim near the Kepler sector." The signature matches one of the old colony ships. "The New Dawn," Ji-Won's eyes widened. "That ship left Earth before silent protocol, before the war ended." "They've been out there for over a century," Hannah confirmed. "They must have been in cryosleep, traveling to a distant world. But now they're awake and they're under attack." Dae-Ho felt his jaw tighten. "Who's attacking them?" "Vortan raiders," Hannah said quietly. 3 ships. The New Dawn has no weapons, no defenses. They're just a colony ship with 10,000 civilians on board." The bridge remained silent. Everyone understood what this meant. For 100 years, humanity had stayed hidden. They had maintained the silence no matter how difficult it was. Revealing themselves now would expose everything. The Vortans would know humanity had survived. War would come again, but 10,000 people were about to die. Daeho walked to the center of the bridge and stood there for a long moment, thinking. He could feel every pair of eyes on him, waiting for his decision. This was the burden of command. This was the weight he carried every single day. How long until the raiders destroy the new dawn? He asked. Hana checked her tablet. Their hull is already failing. Maybe 2 hours, maybe less. And how long would it take us to reach them? At maximum speed, 90 minutes. Daeho looked at Jiwon. His second-in-command met his gaze steadily. She knew what he was thinking. She had always been able to read him. If we go, Jiwon said carefully, there's no going back. The silence ends today. I know, Daeho said. Admiral Minho won't be happy. I know that too. Jiwon stepped closer and lowered her voice. But you're going anyway. It wasn't a question. Daeho allowed himself a small smile. We didn't survive 100 years just to let our own people die. What kind of humanity would that make us? Jiwon smiled back. The wrong kind. Daeho turned to face the crew. All hands, battle stations. Power up all systems. Charge the weapons. Warm up the engines. He paused, letting the moment sink in. After 100 years, humanity returns to the stars. The bridge erupted into activity. Crew members rushed to their stations, their fingers flying over control panels. The lights grew brighter as the ship's main reactor came online, flooding the vessel with power. Deep in the engine rooms, the fusion cores ignited, burning brighter than stars. Through the viewscreen, Daeho watched as the other two ships powered up as well. Their running lights came on, red and white against the black of space. The three vessels were beautiful in their own way, sleek and deadly. They were called Firebird-class warships, humanity's answer to alien superiority. All systems online, Jiwon reported. We're ready, Captain. Navigation, set course for the Kepler sector, Daeho ordered. Maximum speed. Course plotted and locked. Communications, prepare a message to Earth Command. Tell Admiral Minho that silent protocol is over. Tell him we're going to save our people. Yes, sir. Daeho sat down in the captain's chair and gripped the armrests. All ships, this is Captain Kim. Today we end our silence. Today we remind the galaxy that humanity doesn't die easily. Engage engines. The three ships surged forward, breaking free of Jupiter's shadow. Behind them, the giant planet continued its eternal rotation, uncaring and unchanged. But ahead of them, across the vast distances of space, 10,000 human lives hung in the balance. And for the first time in 100 years, humanity was coming to answer the call. The age of silence was over. The age of fire had begun. The Vortan raider ship Blood Talon circled the damaged colony vessel like a predator, toying with wounded prey. Inside its command center, Commander Thex watched the human ship spin slowly in space, atmosphere venting from a dozen hull breaches. His thin lips pulled back in what passed for a Vortan smile. How much longer until their life support fails, he asked. 30 minutes, Commander, his tactical officer replied. Maybe 40 if they're lucky. Thex nodded with satisfaction. Good. Let them suffer a bit longer. Then we'll board and take whatever valuables they have. Ancient human artifacts will sell well on the black market. Sir, our sensors are detecting something strange. Thex turned toward the sensor station. What kind of strange? 3 contacts approaching at high speed from the direction of Sol System. They just appeared on our screens a moment ago. Probably traders or scavengers, Thex said dismissively. Scan them and send a warning. Tell them this salvage is claimed by the Vortan Empire. The sensor officer's face went pale. Commander, those aren't traders. Those are warships, and they're accelerating. They'll be here in 5 minutes. Thex felt a chill run down his spine. What species? The sensor officer looked confused, then frightened. Sir, the computer says they're human design, but that's impossible. Humans are extinct. For a moment, no one on the bridge spoke. Then Thex laughed, though it sounded forced. Obviously a mistake. Some species must have copied human designs. Ready weapons and prepare to defend ourselves. But deep down, Thex felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. Aboard the lead Firebird warship Phoenix Rising, Captain Daeho watched as the range to the enemy ships decreased. Distance? 200,000 kilometers and closing, Jiwon reported. Weapons are hot and ready. Launch fighters. Along the flanks of all 3 human warships, Launch bays opened like flowers blooming. Small fighter craft shot out into space, their engines blazing blue-white. Leading them was young Sik Nam, the best pilot in the fleet. He was 28 years old and had been training for this moment his entire life. "Wildfire Squadron, form up on me," young Sik said into his comm. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. "Stay tight and watch each other's backs. Remember your training." "Copy that, Wildfire Leader," came the responses from his wingman. Young Sik checked his fighter's systems one more time. Everything was perfect. The new fusion core engines gave his ship incredible speed and maneuverability. The plasma cannons packed more punch than anything the old human military had possessed, and the adaptive shields could absorb tremendous damage. All fighters were going weapons hot, young Sik announced. "Target the raider ships. Protect the New Dawn at all costs." Aboard the Blood Talon, alarms began screaming. "Commander, they're launching fighters, dozens of them." Thek stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The three approaching warships were now surrounded by swarms of smaller craft. "Fire on them! Kill them all!" The Vortan ships opened fire with their energy weapons, sending streams of red plasma across space. But the human fighters were fast, incredibly fast. They twisted and rolled through the barrage like leaves dancing in the wind. Not a single fighter was hit. Young Sik grinned inside his helmet. "Their targeting computers are too slow. Wildfire Squadron, attack pattern Delta. Show them what humans can do." The squadron split into 3 groups, each one diving toward a different raider ship. Young Sik's group went straight for the Blood Talon. He waited until the last possible second, until the Vortan ship filled his entire view screen, then opened fire. Twin streams of superheated plasma lanced out from his fighter, striking the raider's shield. The shield flared bright yellow, then collapsed completely. Young Sik's wingmen followed immediately after, their shots tearing into the ship's hull, ripping through armor like paper. "Wildfire Leader, this is Wildfire 3. Their shields are pathetic." "I noticed," young Sik replied. "Keep hitting them. Don't give them time to recover." On the bridge of the Phoenix Rising, Daeho watched the fighter attack with pride. "They're doing well. Commander Lee, bring us into firing range. Target the largest raider ship." "Yes, sir. Charging main cannons." The Firebird-class warships closed the distance rapidly. When they were close enough, all 3 ships fired simultaneously. Massive beams of concentrated energy shot across space, each one bright enough to rival a small sun. The beams struck the Vortan ships with devastating force. The smallest raider exploded immediately, torn apart by the impact. The other 2 tried to retreat, but they were too slow. The human warships matched their every move, firing again and again. 100 years of simulated warfare had taught humanity valuable lessons. Human tactics had evolved far beyond anything the Vortans could predict. Commander Thex clutched his command chair as his ship shook violently. "Return fire, all weapons." "Shields are down to 20%, his tactical officer screamed. "We can't penetrate their defenses." "Then ram them, do something." But it was too late. Young Sik's squadron made another pass, and this time they targeted the Blood Talon's engines. Plasma fire tore through the engine housing, and explosions rippled along the ship's stern. The raider went dead in space, powerless and crippled. "Wildfire Squadron, break off," young Sik ordered. "That one's finished." The last Vortan raider tried to escape, its engines burning at maximum power. But Captain Daeho wasn't about to let it go. "Commander Lee, disable their communications and engines. I want that ship intact." "Firing precision shots," Jiwon said calmly. 2 quick bursts from the Phoenix Rising struck the fleeing raider. The first shot destroyed its main antenna array. The second shot melted its engine core. The ship drifted helplessly, going nowhere. Within 15 minutes of the battle starting, it was over. 2 Vortan raiders were destroyed, and 1 was captured. Not a single human ship had been damaged. Not a single human pilot had been lost. Daeho stood from his chair. "Launch rescue teams to the New Dawn. Get those people to safety, and board the captured raider. I want to know everything about their mission." As the rescue operation began, Jiwon stood beside Daeho at the view screen. "We did it," We actually did it. This was just the beginning, Deho said quietly. That third ship saw everything before we disabled their communications. They know we exist now. They'll tell others. Good, Jiwan said with a fierce smile. Let them tell everyone. Let the whole galaxy know that humanity survived. Hours later, the survivors from the New Dawn were brought aboard the human warships. They were confused, frightened, and amazed. Most of them had entered cryo-sleep believing Earth was doomed. They had expected to wake up alone in the universe, the last humans alive. Instead, they woke to find that Earth had survived, that humanity had grown strong in the darkness, and that their rescuers had come from the homeworld they thought was lost forever. Captain Deho met with the New Dawn's captain, an elderly woman named Bora Sung. She had tears streaming down her face as she gripped his hand. Earth lives, she whispered. Truly? Earth lives, Deho confirmed. And so do we. Welcome home. Far away in the underground command center beneath the ruins of Seoul, Admiral Minho Choi received Captain Kim's report. The old admiral sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the message on his screen. Then he pressed a button on his desk. Send the signal, he said. Operation Resurrection is authorized. Power up all ships. Activate all communication arrays. It's time to let the galaxy know we're back. Across Earth's solar system, dozens of hidden stations came to life. Transmitters that had been silent for a century began broadcasting again. Ships that had waited in the shadows powered up their engines and moved into formation. And on every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy, a single message was transmitted over and over again. This is Earth. We're back. Throughout the galaxy, the message was received with shock and terror. Species that had thought humanity extinct scrambled to understand what was happening. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, and the Vortan Empire, the species that had claimed credit for humanity's destruction, went into a state of panic. Because they knew what they had done. They knew the crimes they had committed. And now, after 100 years, their victims had returned. The ghosts had risen from the dead, and they carried fire in their hands. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so chaotic. Representatives from 47 species shouted over each other, their voices mixing into an incomprehensible roar. Some demanded answers. Others called for military action. A few simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had just learned. Council Speaker Lorne struck his ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times, the sound echoing like thunder. Order! I demand order in this chamber. The noise died down slowly. Lorne was an ancient being over 300 years old, from a species that valued peace above all else. His gray skin was wrinkled with age, and his many eyes held a wisdom earned through centuries of diplomacy. But even he looked shaken. The facts are clear, Lorne said, his voice steady despite his obvious distress. The species we declared extinct 6 hours ago has transmitted a message across the galaxy. Earth lives. Humanity lives. And they have returned with military capabilities that exceed our intelligence estimates by a significant margin. The Vortan representative, Councillor Vryn, stood abruptly. He was younger than most councillors, but his yellow eyes burned with barely controlled fury. This is an act of deception. Humanity hid from us, violated galactic law by maintaining secret military installations, and now they attack our ships without provocation. Your ships were attacking unarmed civilians, came a new voice from the chamber entrance. Every head turned. A woman walked into the council chamber, flanked by 2 guards in dark uniforms. She was in her early 40s with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. Her black diplomatic robe bore the symbol of Earth, a blue planet wrapped in silver stars. Behind her, visible through the massive windows of the station, 3 Firebird warships held position. Ambassador So Min-yoon had arrived, and she was not asking for permission. This is an outrage, Vryn shouted. Humans have no right to appear before this council. They are not members. Someone walked calmly to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the silence. We were members once, before your empire tried to exterminate us. She turned slowly, making eye contact with as many council members as possible. My name is Ambassador So Min-yoon, and I speak for Earth and all human worlds. We come here today not to beg for recognition, but to demand justice. Lorne studied her carefully. Ambassador Yoon, your appearance here is highly irregular. However, given the circumstances, I will allow you to present your case. Please proceed. Soman nodded and activated a holographic projector. Images filled the air above the council floor, showing burned cities, destroyed orbital stations, and mass graves. 107 years ago, the Vortan Empire launched a coordinated attack on 17 human colonies. They did not declare war. They did not give warnings. They simply came and killed us. The images changed, showing Vortan warships bombarding planets from orbit. 4 billion humans died in the first month. The Vortans used chemical weapons on our cities. They poisoned our oceans. They destroyed our agricultural centers, intending to starve those who survived the initial attacks. Vryn stood again. Those are lies. Fabrications. Are they? Soman turned to face him directly. Then perhaps you can explain these. The hologram shifted to show documents, official Vortan military orders with authentic encryption codes. These are your own fleet commands, Counselor. We recovered them from the ships we captured yesterday. Orders to, quote, eliminate all human presence from the sector. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Several representatives stood to examine the documents more closely. Counselor Mara, a representative from a neutral species known for their honesty, studied the codes carefully. These encryption signatures are genuine, Mara announced. I have seen Vortan military documents before. These are real. Vryn's face went pale, but his voice remained defiant. So what if we attacked first? Humanity was expanding too rapidly, taking resources that belonged to other species. We acted in self-defense. Self-defense? Soman's voice was cold as ice. We never attacked a single Vortan world. We never threatened your empire. You attacked us because you saw us as competition, nothing more. She turned back to address the full council. But this story doesn't end with the Vortans. After we powered down our transmitters and went silent, we spent 100 years listening. And we heard something interesting. We weren't the only species the Vortans attacked without provocation. The hologram changed again, showing a timeline of Vortan military actions over the past 2 centuries. The Kelmar species reduced from billions to millions. The Tresh homeworld, strip-mined until it was uninhabitable. The Vax colonies conquered and enslaved. All of this done by the Vortan Empire, all of it hidden from this council. Representatives from several species stood up, their faces showing shock and anger. One of them, a Kelmar counselor, spoke with a trembling voice. We were told our losses were due to natural disasters and internal conflicts. The Vortans offered humanitarian aid. They offered aid after they caused the destruction, Soman said. It's an old trick. Create a crisis, then appear as the generous savior. Meanwhile, they quietly take control of your resources and your people. The council chamber erupted into arguments again. Species that had received Vortan aid began demanding investigations. Others called for sanctions. The Vortan delegation tried to shout denials, but no one was listening anymore. Lorne struck his staff again. Enough! Ambassador Yoon, what does Earth want? Soman stood tall. We want 3 things. First, we want the Vortan Empire to pay reparations for the damage they caused to humanity. Second, we want a full investigation into Vortan military actions over the past 2 centuries, with punishment for those found guilty of war crimes. Third, we want Earth to be granted a seat on this council with full membership rights. And if we refuse, Vryn demanded. Soman looked at him with cold eyes. Then Earth will take what we're owed by force. We spent 100 years preparing. We built ships designed specifically to counter your empire's military. We studied your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. If you want war, Counselor Vryn, we will give you a war that makes our first conflict look like a small disagreement. At that moment, another person entered the chamber. Commander Hyunwoo Kang walked in, wearing the black uniform of Earth's Special Operations Forces. He moved like a predator, confident and dangerous. He approached Soman and whispered something in her ear. Soman nodded and turned back to the council. I've just received a report from our military. In the past 3 hours, 17 Vortan military installations have experienced catastrophic system failures. Their defense satellites stopped working. Their communication networks went down. Their fuel depots mysteriously caught fire. Vryn's eyes went wide. You attacked us during peace negotiations? We defended ourselves, Soman corrected. Those installations were being used to coordinate attacks on human targets. We simply removed the threat. No Vortan lives were lost, though we could have killed thousands if we wanted to. Hyunwoo spoke for the first time, his voice calm and professional. My teams are very good at their jobs, Counselor. We can be anywhere in the galaxy within 48 hours. Your security systems are 100 years out of date. We walk through them like they're not even there. The threat was clear. Earth had the capability to strike anywhere, anytime, and the Vortans couldn't stop them. Counselor Mara stood up. I move that we vote on Earth's petition for council membership immediately. We have seen evidence of Vortan aggression, and we have witnessed Earth's military capability. I believe they have earned the right to be heard. I second the motion, another counselor said quickly, then another. Within moments, half the council was standing in support. Lorne looked troubled but nodded. Very well. We will vote. All those in favor of granting Earth full membership in the Galactic Council, raise your crystals. One by one, crystals rose into the air. Some species voted yes immediately. Others hesitated but eventually joined. A few abstained, unwilling to commit either way. But when the count was finished, the result was clear. The motion passes, Lorne announced. Earth is granted membership on the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Sumin bowed respectfully. Thank you, Council Speaker. Do not thank me yet, Lorne said quietly. You have made a powerful enemy today. The Vortan Empire will not accept this peacefully. As if in response to his words, Vryn stood and pointed at Somin. This is not over. The Vortan Empire formally declares war on Earth. We will crush you just as we should have a century ago. The Vortan delegation stormed out of the chamber, their footsteps echoing. Silence fell over the remaining counselors. Several of them looked frightened. They had just witnessed the beginning of what might become the largest war the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. Somin turned to Hyunwoo. Send word to Earth. Tell Admiral Minho and Captain Daeho to prepare the fleet. The Vortans are coming. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. They'll be ready. We've been ready for 100 years. As Somin left the council chamber, escorted by her guards, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Earth had achieved its first goal. They had a voice on the council now. They had legitimacy, but the hard part was just beginning. The Vortan Empire was massive, with hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships. Earth was strong, but could they survive another war? The Vortan War Master Drax stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominion, watching the massive fleet assemble around him. 500 warships filled the space near the Vortan homeworld, more military power than had been gathered in one place for 50 years. Drax was old for a Vortan, nearly 70 years with scars covering his scaled skin. He had fought in dozens of battles and never lost. Status report, Drax commanded. His second officer consulted a data display. All ships report ready, War Master. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, supplies loaded. We can depart within the hour. Drax nodded with satisfaction. Good. These humans think they can challenge the Empire with a handful of ships. We will show them the price of arrogance. Set course for Sol system. We will burn Earth to ash and scatter the remains. The fleet moved out, hundreds of ships accelerating toward human space. It would take them 6 days to reach Earth at maximum speed. Drax spent that time reviewing intelligence reports and planning the attack. But something bothered him. The humans had been quiet since the council meeting. Too quiet. Where are their ships? Drax asked his intelligence officer. We know they have at least 47 warships. Where are they? The officer looked uncomfortable. We don't know, War Master. They disappeared from our sensors 3 days ago. We believe they're hiding somewhere in the outer colonies. Then they're cowards, Drax said, though his voice held less certainty than his words. They run from a real fight. But the officer's next words made Drax's blood run cold. Sir, we just lost contact with the advanced scout group. All 12 ships gone silent. Deep in Earth's solar system, Fleet Admiral Jisoo Han watched the tactical display from her command ship Eternal Vigil. She was 53 years old, with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had survived the First War as a young officer. Now she commanded humanity's entire military. Confirmed, Commander Sung-Min Oh reported. 12 Vortan scouts eliminated. They never had a chance to transmit a warning. Jisoo studied the display showing the approaching Vortan fleet. 500 ships was a lot, more than the Vortans had sent during the First War. But this time humanity was ready. How many ships do we have in position? Jisoo asked. 47 Firebird-class warships, 130 support vessels, and 300 fighters, Sungmin replied. Plus the orbital defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and the stations. We're outnumbered nearly 3-1. Sungmin smiled slightly. On paper, yes. But our ships are better. Our crews are better trained, and we know something the Vortans don't. What's that? We know how to lose. Sungmin's smile faded. They've been winning for so long they've forgotten what desperation feels like. We never forgot. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Rising, floating in the darkness beyond Neptune. All around his ship, the rest of the fleet waited in silence. They were spread out across billions of kilometers, each ship hidden in the shadow of planets, moons, or asteroids. Dispersal doctrine, Daeho said quietly to Commander Jiwon Lee. We don't fight like them. We don't form up in neat lines and trade shots. We scatter, we ambush, we hit and run. Guerrilla warfare in space, Jiwon agreed. Just like the simulations. Young Sik Nam sat in his fighter, strapped into the cockpit and ready to launch at a moment's notice. His squadron was hidden inside the Phoenix Rising's launch bay, but he could see the tactical feed. The Vortan fleet was getting closer. Wildfire Squadron, this is command, came Admiral Jisu's voice over the comm. Enemy fleet will reach Neptune in 30 minutes. Remember your training. Stay alive, stay smart, and show them what humans can do. Yes, ma'am, Young Sik replied, and heard his pilots echo the response. The Vortan fleet entered Neptune's orbital space expecting to find Earth's fleet waiting in formation. Instead, they found nothing. Empty space, silent and dark. Scan everything, Drax ordered. They must be here somewhere. His sensor officer worked frantically. Sir, I'm detecting some strange readings near Neptune's moons, but they're probably just radiation interference. Check it anyway. Before the officer could respond, space lit up with weapons fire. 3 human warships appeared from behind Neptune's largest moon and fired at point-blank range. Their plasma beams cut through 2 Vortan ships before the Empire's forces could even raise shields. Ambush, someone screamed. All ships, defensive formation. But there was no formation to defend. More human ships appeared from different directions, each one firing and then disappearing again behind planets or into debris fields. The Vortans tried to return fire, but the human ships were too fast, too agile. They would appear, strike, and vanish before the Vortans could target them properly. Daeho watched his tactical display with satisfaction. Just like we planned. Commander Lee, target the command ship. 3-shot burst, then jump to position Baker. Targeting now. The Phoenix Rising fired 3 precise shots at the Dominion. The first 2 struck the flagship's shields, overloading them. The third shot punched through and tore a massive hole in the ship's side. Then the human ship activated its advanced engines and jumped to a new position, 300,000 kilometers away. What kind of engines are those? Drax roared. How are they moving so fast? Unknown technology, sir. Our ships can't match their speed. Young Sik led his squadron out of the launch bay. Wildfire Squadron, engage at will. Target their weapon systems and engines. Make them helpless. The human fighters swarmed through the Vortan fleet like angry wasps. They were so small and fast that the Vortan point defense systems couldn't track them. Young Sik's plasma cannons burned through enemy hulls with ease. Behind him, his squadron followed his lead, taking out one Vortan ship after another. They're using swarm tactics, a Vortan officer reported. Our weapons can't target them effectively. Admiral Jisoo watched the battle from her command ship. The plan was working perfectly. Human ships didn't fight fair. They didn't line up and trade shots. They used Neptune's gravity, its moons, its radiation belts. They used hit-and-run tactics, ambush tactics, anything that gave them an advantage. Activate the EMP satellites, Jisoo ordered. Sungmin pressed a button. All around the battle zone, hidden satellites that had been placed weeks ago came to life. They released powerful electromagnetic pulses that washed over the Vortan fleet. Hundreds of enemy ships lost power as their systems were overloaded. Now, Jisoo commanded. All ships, full assault. The human fleet appeared from every direction, converging on the disabled Vortan ships. It was like watching wolves attack a herd of injured animals. The battle became a slaughter. Vortan ships exploded by the dozens, their crews unable to defend themselves. Drax watched his fleet die around him. In 30 minutes, he had lost over 400 ships. 400? His hands shook as he gripped his command chair. War Master, we must retreat, his second officer pleaded. Retreat? To where? They're everywhere. Anywhere but here. Please, sir. Drax finally accepted the truth. They had lost. The humans had completely outmaneuvered them. All remaining ships withdraw. Maximum speed. The surviving Vortan vessels tried to flee, but the human ships pursued them. More enemy ships fell before they could escape the system. When it was over, only 97 Vortan ships remained out of the original 500. Aboard the Phoenix Rising, Daeho's crew cheered. G1 turned to him with a wide smile. We did it, Captain. We actually did it. Damage report? Daeho asked. Minor damage to 3 ships, no casualties. The shields held perfectly. Daeho allowed himself a small smile. Sungmin's shield technology worked even better than we hoped. Young Sik brought his squadron back to the Phoenix Rising, his heart still racing from the fight. Wildfire leader to command. All fighters accounted for. 0 losses. Well done, Wildfire leader, Admiral Jisoo responded. Return to your ships and prepare for possible counterattack. But the counterattack never came. The surviving Vortan ships fled all the way back to their territory and didn't stop. War Master Drax sat alone in his damaged command center, staring at nothing. He had been so confident. The Empire had been so sure of victory, and the humans had destroyed them in less than an hour. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread rapidly. Species that had feared the Vortan Empire for centuries heard that humanity had defeated them decisively. Many began to reconsider their positions. If the humans could win, maybe freedom was possible. On 17 different worlds, rebellions began. Species that had been conquered or intimidated by the Vortans rose up. Inspired by Earth's example, the Empire's grip on the galaxy began to weaken. In the underground command center on Earth, Admiral Minho Choi watched the reports with satisfaction. The balance of power has shifted. The Vortans are no longer invincible. What's our next move? His assistant asked. We press the advantage, Minho said. The Galactic Council has sent a message. They want to negotiate peace terms. But we're not stopping until we have justice. In space above Neptune, the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the war. They had won the first major battle, but everyone knew the conflict wasn't over. The Vortan Empire was massive, with thousands of worlds and millions of soldiers. But for the first time in 100 years, humanity held the advantage. They had proven that they could fight, that they could win. The age of fear was ending. President Yoon Shin stood at the window of her office on Earth, looking up at the night sky. She was 60 years old, born during the dark years after the First War. She had spent her entire life underground, working to rebuild what had been destroyed. Now finally she could see the stars without fear. Madam President, her aide said softly, the fleet is ready to depart. Captain Kim is requesting final authorization. Yoonji turned from the window. Tell him he has it. But remind him of his orders. We're not going to the Vortan homeworld as conquerors. We're going as judges. The aide nodded and left. Yoonji sat down at her desk and activated a secure communication channel. On the screen appeared several faces, council members, and military leaders from Earth's government. The Galactic Council is pressuring us to accept a ceasefire, one council member said. They claim we've proven our point and further action will destabilize the region. The region is already destabilized, Yoonji replied calmly. The Vortan Empire committed genocide against humanity and enslaved dozens of other species. If we stop now, nothing changes. They'll rebuild, and in 50 years they'll try again. So what do you propose? We finish this properly. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the Vortan homeworld. Captain Daeho Kim commanded the force from the Phoenix Rising, with 47 warships surrounding the planet. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, they waited. On the surface, the Vortan government was in chaos. Half the leadership wanted to surrender. The other half wanted to fight to the death. War Master Drax had been stripped of his command and imprisoned. The military was in disarray after the devastating loss at Neptune. General Taeyang Park led a different mission. While the fleet blockaded the Vortan homeworld, his ground forces were liberating conquered worlds. The first was Kelmar, where Vortan occupation forces had controlled the population for decades. Remember, Taeyang told his soldiers as they prepared to land, we're here to free these people, not to conquer them. Minimum force only. No civilian casualties. The Kelmar people watched in amazement as human dropships descended from the sky. They had expected another invader. another species coming to control them. Instead, the humans fought only the Vortan soldiers, disabling their weapons and taking them prisoner without unnecessary killing. "Why are you helping us?" a Kelmar leader asked Taiyang after the battle. "Because someone should have helped us," Taiyang replied simply. "And because it's the right thing to do." Over the next 2 weeks, human forces liberated 3 more worlds. Each time they left the planets in the control of the native populations, asking nothing in return except friendship. The freed species couldn't believe it. In their experience, military power always came with demands for tribute or loyalty, but humanity was different. Back at the Vortan homeworld, the blockade continued. No ships could leave or enter. Food and supplies were running low. Finally, a delegation from the Vortan government contacted Captain Deho. "We wish to negotiate surrender terms," the lead delegate said. She was an older Vortan named Cress, one of the few civilian leaders who had opposed the war from the beginning. "I'm listening," Deho said. "What are your demands?" Deho consulted a list that President Yunji had given him. "Complete disarmament of your military. All warships to be decommissioned except for defensive vessels. War crimes trials for everyone involved in planning the attack on humanity. Reparations to be paid to Earth and all other species you've harmed. And you will release all enslaved populations immediately." Cress looked troubled. "These terms are harsh. Many of our people will not accept them." "Then many of your people will starve," Deho said bluntly. "We can maintain this blockade for years if necessary." "You cannot. Choose wisely." The Vortan government argued for 3 days. Some wanted to reject the terms and fight, but cooler heads eventually prevailed. They had seen what happened when they fought humanity. They didn't want to see it again. Cress returned to the Phoenix Rising. "We accept your terms, but I have a request." War Master Drax and his closest supporters planned the attack on humanity without full government approval. They exceeded their authority. I ask that you distinguish between them and the Vortan people as a whole. Deho considered this. "You're asking us to be merciful. I'm asking you to be just. There's a difference?" "I hope so," Cress said quietly. "For both our species' sake." Deho made his decision. "Very well. Those directly responsible for war crimes will face trial. The rest of your people will be allowed to rebuild in peace under supervision. But understand this. If the Vortan Empire ever threatens humanity or any other species again, we won't show mercy a second time." Understood. While the Vortan situation was being resolved, President Yunji Shin traveled to the Galactic Council station. This time she wasn't arriving as an ambassador seeking recognition. She was arriving as the leader of a major galactic power. Council Speaker Lorne greeted her personally. "President Shin, welcome. Your actions have changed the galaxy considerably." "That was the goal," Yunji replied. "But we're not done yet. I have a proposal for the council." She stood before the assembled representatives and presented her plan. "The Vortan Empire fell because they abused their power and no one stopped them. We cannot let that happen again. I propose the creation of the Mutual Protection Accord, a treaty where member species pledge to defend each other against aggression." Councillor Mara spoke up. "You're proposing a military alliance?" "I'm proposing a guarantee of survival," Yunji corrected. "Any species that signs the accord will have the protection of all other signatories. If one is attacked, all respond. It removes the incentive for stronger species to prey on weaker ones." "And who will enforce this accord?" another councillor asked. "Will Earth claim that authority?" "No," Yunji said firmly. "We'll create a joint defense force with representatives from every member species. Earth will contribute ships and training, but we won't control it. This has to be something we build together." The debate lasted for hours. Some species were suspicious of Earth's motives. Others worried about giving up their independence. But slowly support grew. The species that had been liberated by human forces spoke in favor. The species that had suffered under Vortan rule saw the value in mutual protection. Finally, a vote was called. The Mutual Protection Accord passed with overwhelming support. Dr. Hannah Park stood in a laboratory on Earth, meeting with scientists from a dozen different species. They had come to learn about human technology, and in exchange, they were sharing their own knowledge. "Your shield technology is remarkable," a Kelmar scientist said, examining a display. "How did you develop it?" "Necessity," Hannah replied. "When you're facing extinction, you either innovate or die. We chose to innovate, and now you're sharing it freely. With our allies, yes. Knowledge grows when it's shared. We learned that the hard way. The cultural exchange went beyond technology. Human artists shared music, painting, and literature with alien species. In return, Earth received art forms they had never imagined. Philosophers debated ethics and meaning. Teachers developed programs to help different species understand each other. It wasn't always easy. Cultural misunderstandings happened frequently, but people tried, and that was what mattered. Captain Daeho Kim was promoted to admiral and given a new assignment. He would command a training facility where humans and aliens would learn to work together. Young Sik Nam was appointed as the chief flight instructor, teaching alien pilots the tactics that had defeated the Vortan fleet. "Do you think this will last?" Ji-Won Lee asked Daeho one evening as they watched a mixed squadron run training exercises. "The peace, I mean." "Nothing lasts forever," Daeho replied. "But we can make it last as long as possible. That's all anyone can do." Ambassador So Min-yoon took her seat as Earth's permanent representative on the Galactic Council. It was a position of tremendous responsibility, but she was ready for it. She had fought hard to get Earth to this point. Now she would fight just as hard to maintain it. "The first order of business," Council Speaker Lorne announced, "is to address the petition from the Tresh species. They request assistance in rebuilding their homeworld after years of Vortan strip mining. Earth will contribute ships and resources," Soman said immediately, "and I'm certain other council members will do the same." One by one, species pledged support. The Tresh representative, an elderly being who had suffered under Vortan occupation for decades, wept openly at the generosity. This was the galaxy that humanity was building. Not one based on fear and domination, but on cooperation and mutual support. Years passed. The Vortan Empire was dismantled, its territory divided among dozens of independent worlds. War Master Drax and his co-conspirators were tried and convicted of war crimes. Most were sentenced to life imprisonment. A few were executed, but the Vortan people themselves were given a chance to rebuild. With human assistance, they developed a democratic government and began the long process of making amends for their empire's crimes. On Earth, life slowly returned to the surface. The underground cities remained, but new structures rose above them. Trees were planted, oceans were cleaned. The scars of war began to heal. Young Sik Nam married and had children. One evening, his daughter looked up at the stars and asked, "Daddy, are we safe now?"